All right, Margie, this is Isaac. I have the live stream going, and I've made you host. So, let me know if you need anything else.
Great. Thanks, Isaac. I greatly appreciate your help.
No problem.
Good morning, Margie.
How are you, Abbas?
I'm doing well, Margie. I'm sorry I disappeared for quite a while.
Oh, that's okay. We're carrying on. I'm glad to have you today to help with our discussion on definitions.
Thank you. No, absolutely. I'm so glad because the work that is being done is really amazing.
It's been a very good team.
It is indeed. Well,
good. All right. Well, we will
I'll
wait.
stand by.
Okay, we'll wait for Arthur, and then I know he's got a plan, so we'll just carry on.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Hello. Looks like we had everybody trained to get here at 9:30, even though this is at 10 o'clock.
Good morning, Arthur.
Hey, good morning, Abbas. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to meet you after a long time.
Yeah, it has been a long time. Don't feel bad about missing that meeting with Commissioner Hall yesterday.
Oh, did it happen?
Yeah,
Oh
yesterday
my
afternoon.
gosh.
It was a little. She had a whole bunch of things jammed together in her head, and we had to dissect them pretty much.
Okay.
So
I'll get with you later on that.
yeah,
Thank you.
sure. Margie, how are you?
Good morning. I am doing just great today on this Thursday. Thank you.
Sure. Great. Thank you. All right. We'll give a few people. I don't anticipate that we'll have the full load of people. So
And
now,
what would you like me
yesterday-
to, how can I support you?
keep me on track. I only got 3 emails yesterday. One was a boss commenting on definitions. One was EPE, and they had just a couple of comments on the definitions. And PNM appears to have sent comments on version 2 that included a page of definitions, but I'm having because they used line numbers and they didn't say what the word was that they were being defined. So we may have to go into version 2 to identify exactly which words they're talking about
Okay,
when we get there.
I will
So
have
if
that
you have
open.
version 2 ready, yeah.
Okay.
And that was all. I mean, we had kind of asked for, I guess PNM gave us some clarifying language, but we had asked for a couple of other things that we didn't necessarily get yet by the 15th, but I presume that they'll go into the comments on version 2.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I've got version 2 open, and I have your compilation of definitions open.
Yeah, let me run that one.
That'd be good.
Yeah, so that it's easier for me to scroll down.
Good. Perfect.
Christopher Corral, I'm not recognizing your name. Can you identify yourself, please?
Yes, I'm with El Paso Electric.
Oh, hi, Christopher. And there's somebody who just joined us on the telephone. Last four digits 0074. Could you identify yourself, please? You're on mute if you're trying to talk.
Hello, Art. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, is this Anthony Bueno?
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. I called in on my phone as well. I'm the number you just mentioned.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you probably shouldn't be on both because we're getting feedback from you.
Thank you. I'll hang up the phone.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ron Flax Davidson, I'm not recognizing your name either. Could you identify yourself?
Yes, I'm on the board of Positive Energy Solar.
Okay, thanks for joining us. All right, we'll just give it one more minute as we have 25 people on, which is more than I thought. Okay, well, let's start. Good morning, everybody. Arthur O'Donnell, PRC here, joined by Margie Tetro. This is the penultimate meeting that we have scheduled, which means that we have one more meeting next Thursday at the regular time, 9:30 till whenever we have to go. Hopefully, we will be working through any proposed changes to version 2 of the report, which was sent out on Monday. It would be helpful if we got your comments in advance of that. I think we gave you up until the night before, but if you can get them in sooner than that, it makes our life a little bit easier to try and incorporate that stuff rather than trying to do it on the fly. I have also invited Commissioner Hall to attend that meeting. So she has been given a copy of version 2 as it stands now, just so that she's familiar with things. And we're having discussions internally about how to proceed once this report is sent to the commission. And so we'll probably have some more to talk about on that front next week. If everything goes well, we will finalize this and get it into the commission. The date on the draft says October 1st. If it happens the first week of October, then that's how it should be. I don't really have any other related news to share except some good news from the National Community Solar Partnership Group. Those of you who have been following the community solar proceeding know that at a workshop in August, we presented an idea for a pilot project working with Olga Lavrova, who's with us today, and students from the New Mexico State University to perform some hosting capacity analysis using kind of open source tools and working with utilities, hopefully, to identify some circuits that might pertain to community solar projects. The National Community Solar Partnership is interested in providing some technical assistance to that project. I don't have any details, but they have expressed interest in that, and we're particularly interested in doing a write-up afterwards that so that the results of that can be shared with other jurisdictions around the country that are looking at the same issues. So that's good news. The partnership is also providing some support for another issue within community solar, which is surveying community solar programs around the country to find out what it actually costs to administer them. Because the Public Regulation Commission is in charge of administering this community solar program, but we have no staff, no resources, no money. So we have to figure out, one, how much it might cost, and two, figure out where the money's going to come from. So that's just something that they're providing some background information. Does anybody have anything that they want to, Olga, has your hand raised?
Oh, yes.
Morning,
So
Olga.
that was definitely great news. I'm really excited to even start prep work for doing this work. So in terms of funding, you mentioned that we need to figure out where the funding comes from. So will this technical assistance be able to provide any support?
No money, just technical support.
So that means, so as a former national lab person, that means that they will just cover their own time, but nothing towards us, or specifically you, because you guys are the ones without.
Well, I get paid anyway. It really what we're concerned with is the actual administration of the community solar program. You know, kind of like overseeing resource selection, however it's done. Verifying the eligibility of clients and that projects meet the criterion, and that's going to take staff. And you know, we don't know whether. I guess the three options are is that we find money somewhere in the budget, right? And we're going to the legislature to ask for money because they didn't give us any money. There is a provision in the SB 84 bill that we could charge an application fee to projects to defray some of the operating costs. However, that money immediately gets turned over to the state treasury, and the PRC doesn't get to keep any of it. And so that's like, what? Who did this? Who dealt this mess? Or a third, that we find an outside administrator, but then that person or entity would have to get paid as well. In some jurisdictions, the utilities are the administrators of the program, especially in Colorado, where you essentially have one big utility. That is not being favored by the subgroup, by the stakeholder group in community solar. So we have to figure out what to do about that. But that's another proceeding and another issue.
So maybe you and I can take it offline to formulate actual, really nitty-gritty next steps.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and you know, we'd be looking at kind of like doing this in the January to March or April timeframe.
That sounds perfect.
Okay, great. Anybody else have anything to report, announce?
Arthur, this is Margie. I have a couple of administrative questions. I see a couple of participants I don't recognize on our chat. Charlotte, if you could send Margie a chat in the to tell me your affiliation, last name, and email, that would be great. I see a person, Conrad Flowers. Please let me know also your affiliation and email. And Donna Enriquez. And then somebody with a phone number, last four digits of 4094. So those are the questions I have about participants.
Telephone number 4094. That'd be Leon Viveros. I can only join by phone. I'm with PNM. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon.
Okay, and I don't recognize Robel Orega's name.
Yes, that's a new participant that I was contacted by this past week. Robel, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. Robel Arega from NextAmp Solar. Jens Foyer was the previous member that from our team that would join these calls. But I will be taking over for his New Mexico project. So that's where that's at. And Conrad Flowers is also from the grid team, the grid interconnection team over at NextAmp. So nice to meet everyone. Excited to work with you.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you all for joining today, and welcome to the folks that are joining us for the first time or have not been following closely. Today's agenda is completely about working through the definitions. And I sent out a document that I'm going to share with everybody that incorporates proposed modifications or alternate definitions that people had forwarded as part of the review of the first version of the draft, and we had a couple of, as I mentioned, a couple of other filings with things. So while I have those documents, I'm probably going to ask the people to talk about that. So it is our hope that we can agree on one alternative or another alternative, and if we just cannot agree, then that's going to get pushed down into the non-consensus section of definitions, and we'll go into the report that way. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and this was color-coded, and unfortunately I ran out of good colors. So basically any term for which there is an alternative or a modification is just in kind of a gray color there, like you can see the anti-islanding, and then the alternative is color-coded either fully or partially, and if it's in this aqua color, that came from SPS's comments that they provided on version 1. There are a couple that are in yellow that are either from NextAmp provided a couple of definitions or the joint industry group. And I'll just point out that when we get there, you did not all have, in the one version I sent you, the industry group's recommended distributed energy resource definition. It's in the version that I have before me on the screen. So we have two alternatives. One is the kind of hybrid that NextAmp had given us some, and MNerd had given us some, and I kind of combined them. But the industry group kind of prefers their version, so we'll talk about that when we get there. Other is other, right? Came from other sources. And there was a section in version 1 in talking about the hosting capacity that had some definitions in it. And so those I just took and transplanted into the place here in the alpha order as if they were in the original version. And we'll just have to talk about this. I'm sorry that they're in purple. I hope I bolded it so that they're a little bit easier to read, but I know that sometimes it's not easy to read black on a dark color. But I ran out of light colors, so I don't know why Word doesn't have more options for me. Okay, is that clear to everybody? And italics. There are parts of some definitions that I just thought, well, I'm not quite sure that we agreed to the meaning of that change, right? So we're going to talk about that when we get there. Okay, is that clear to everybody? Any questions? No. Okay. Well, let's dive right in, and we have two alternatives for anti-islanding. And what was originally in version 1 has been modified, and this was at SPS's recommendation. and we talked about this a little bit last week. We would be adding the word "and is intended to prevent" as opposed to prevents.
Art.
And yeah, go ahead.
I'm
You
sorry
just-
to interrupt. This is Leon from PNM.
Yeah.
We submitted a document with definitions.
I have that in front of me, and you're going to have to help me because you didn't say what the term was. You just referred to the line numbers in the version.
Okay.
So if we get there, please say, oh, we had one, and tell me what it is. Do you have your version of it in front of you?
I do. And could we also capture that we submitted those in the document as you have outlined there? I'll point them out, but we would like for it to be captured that PNM did submit a list of changes or proposals for the definitions. Thank you.
Okay, I'm not quite sure. I can add here. Proposed changes, but it won't be in color. So, is it okay if I give you the same color as? I guess I can do this. I'll give you light gray.
Arthur,
Okay.
this is Jordan Kessler from EPE. We also submitted changes. Did you receive those or proposed changes?
I did receive those. It really wasn't changes. I mean, it was really like comments on 3 of them, unless I'm missing something.
I think
The
that's
only substantive add was additional wording to net rating, but everything else was EPE concurs or EPE wants something deleted, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Yes, we got them.
okay. Thank you. If you could also just, as you did with PNM, note our changes, we'd really appreciate that.
Okay, well, you're just going to get the same color then.
That's
So
fine.
there's no pride of authorship here. We're just going to, okay?
You need a set of crayons, Art.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I know. And Abbas, you're going to make my life really difficult here. All right. So let's start. Does anybody have any objections to the addition of "and is intended"? I mean, obviously the intent here is to say, well, it doesn't always work.
This is Satish. I agree.
Okay. Okay. The only thing I'm going to do with this is just put a mark on the one that we're accepting, and I will cross this out. Can I do this? Unfortunately, I can't. References. Review. No, I'm not getting I can't do track changes in this particular. Here we go. Track changes. There. Okay, so I can do track changes. Okay, going down to area network, and we have an alternate, and the change here is to add the term grid network as defined by the IEEE standard, right? It wasn't in here, and then adding an area network is also referred to as a grid network or a street network. An area network should be treated as a spot network if there are less than 3 network delivery points. SPS provided this. Any discussion as to why this is necessary?
Yeah, this is Matt Hagan with SPS. It provides a better delineation of the network types and the terms commonly utilized.
Okay. Does anybody have any problem with making that add? It's a little bit,
Just a thought, Art. Area network might be more general. A spot network usually is looped on the secondary side. I'm not sure that is required in an area network, but Matt, you can clarify.
Sorry, I didn't hear all of the question.
The very last sentence, a spot network is looped on the secondary side. That, you can correct me, may not be true of an area network.
so the question is this really, I mean, this last sentence, I'm fine with the also referred to as a grid network or a street network. Is it really necessary to have this last sentence here? Should be treated as a spot network, or is this something that can just go into your technical guidelines?
It can probably go into the technical guidelines.
Okay. But we're okay with keeping this sentence and then the reference to the grid network?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll delete this one. Hopefully this won't be too cumbersome. Okay. Going down to capacity screening process, and really the change is just to drop the term capacity. And this was SPS's. Is there a reason why the word capacity is not desired here?
Because there are capacity related screens and there are also non-capacity related screens, such as like the fault current contribution or protection screens. So that using the term capacity and capacity screens, it can be limiting for this definition of the screening process and how the screens are applied.
Okay, so just by having screening process, it's more generally referring to any of the screens that are delineated in the policies, right?
Correct.
And it's also consistent with the rest of the document. The rest of the document just says screen. Okay.
So again, we will accept that change, get rid of this. Okay. This one, capacity upgrade planning, and SPS and EPE also confer, agrees to want to delete this. All right, tell me why we're deleting this.
So system-wide studies to determine system upgrade plans for consideration of future customer adoption of generation. It falls outside of the DER interconnection process, which is the procedure of interconnecting, DER applications right now.
Okay, do we refer to this anywhere in the report? Anybody from the industry side? Jim Desjardins has his hand raised.
Yes, yes, Arthur, I just speaking for the industry, I think it's important that we keep that in there. That's something that we've discussed at length that we believe is, part of this docket and should remain part of this docket.
I think we also made a comment in regards to that where it's not referenced anywhere else. What we commented with respect to that specific point is that this item would have to be determined by a cost recovery rider through the rate recovery process. And currently there is no current allocation of resources for this purpose. So we agree with
there may well be in the future. I mean, there may well be in the future. I mean, I'm more inclined to just move it down into the non-consensus area.
So Arthur, this is Margie. That term is not used in version 2 of the report. We do not have capacity upgrade planning mentioned anywhere else in version 2.
Okay. Does anybody have objection with me moving it down, not deleting it, but not having it here in this section, but moving it into the non-consensus?
Yes, Arthur, this is Roberto from Paso Electric. We also want to see it removed. I think this manual needs to specifically focus on the things that we're working on. Capacity, this is like they're trying to put this here for potential cost allocation purposes, and that's not the purpose of this document itself. So, we're not doing planning here for what they're intending, but more, like SBS said, we're doing the evaluation of interconnection requests, and that should be the sole scope of this document.
So a quick comment, Art, if I may.
Yeah.
I think that phrase is useful to a lay reader, but I agree that this document is about generation and storage. Just to give you an example, capacity upgrade planning happens every day, and it's going to happen more and more driven by electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are not a target of what we are doing, but to a lay person, perhaps that phrase is useful, that capacity upgrade planning is something utilities do, regardless of distributed generation changes in load, electric vehicles. It's just a very standard utility process. But we can take it out if it doesn't appear in the manual or in the report.
Okay. Since there is interest in keeping it, I'm going to move it down into the non-consensus, right? So that it doesn't get here. And whether it makes it into the manual or the rule is another issue. But at least we'll take it out of this body of information right now. Okay.
In Art, can we note why is this going to be remain here if this is not going to be, because this manual is specifically for a customer requesting an interconnection. So what would be the grounds for having this thing as a very holistic, broad approach?
To interconnection, that will be noted.
I would also like to add that just to give reassurance to what Satish commented, in PNM, we do have a planning group that looks at what you're referring to, capacity upgrade planning. We are looking at those things.
Arthur, if I could just jump in, since others at the utility have, it is in my mind, one of the main reasons we have this docket is limitations of capacity. So I think for that reason, if for no other reason, there should be in the docket something about upgrading capacity. To me, that's just very logical. So at the very least, I do think it should go in non-consensus.
Okay, that's what we'll do. Let's move on. Okay, PNM, I feel like we're coming to a place where you have an alternate definition. Can you identify the next area? The first one, it was, you have it here, line 535, this is intended for in front of the meters large systems. Maybe Margie can check line 535 in the version 2.
Auxiliary load.
Auxiliary load. Okay, so that is here. And what is your recommended change there, PNM? You want to add this is intended for in front of the meter systems? Is that a definition, or I don't understand?
We were trying to find clarification if that's what this is intended for, more than defining it that way. But yeah, it usually corresponds to in front of the meters large systems.
Okay, does anybody have objection to adding that phrase? This is intended for in front of the meter large systems.
Could behind the meter systems not have auxiliary load?
I don't
like
know.
a power control system that has has some load associated with it.
You tell me.
Well, I guess I'm asking P&M.
Would we want to consider those auxiliary loads?
Yeah.
And how can we have that visibility? We do not, right?
Art, if I may,
Yeah.
once again, the purpose of the glossary is to just give pointers for terms that may or may not show up. Technically, auxiliary load could be associated with anything, and perhaps with PV, it's nothing but certain types of batteries. There may be cooling systems, turbine generators. It could be something completely different. All we are saying is sometimes there is a load out there if you have a generator. And we are not saying it's behind the meter, ahead of the meter. We're not telling anybody how to account for it. We are just saying sometimes you have to have some power for a particular type of generation or storage to operate. That's all.
Okay. All right. So the question, the only question that I care about is this an accurate statement and is it necessary?
Sure. I'll leave that to the group though.
A point of information, the term auxiliary is used 3 times in the document, but only in the definitions section. So it's referenced in things like host load definition, net rating definition, and its current base definition.
Right.
So Margie, this is Darren. So we're not using auxiliary load to subtract from the gross generation of a system to find a net that would actually go to the grid. We're not using it for a calculation.
I think we have provision for that. No, I don't recall that in the text.
This takes me to this next question that I'm going to pose to the group. Considering what Satish said in terms of this being a glossary, is this a glossary or are these definitions going to be what affects the rule? I think we need to make that distinction. If this is just a glossary, we don't mind the definitions being there. They might prove useful, but you know what we did see is that this will be part of what is going to be included in the rule change, and that's why we're making these comments. We just want clarity.
I think that's a very good point. Yes, I apologize. This started as a glossary, but then we changed it to definitions.
Yeah.
So Art, I'm gonna look to you and Margie. Yes, my comment was strictly, my brain is still fixated on glossary. I apologize.
Yeah, oh, that's all right. I mean, there's a reason why we're trying to define these terms. Okay.
Yeah. So it should remain as definitions rather than glossary art.
Yeah, that's fine. But the question is, does this phrase work here? Do we accept this change?
You know, it may be the phrase and the calculation may be important both from the customer view as well as the utility. For the utility in terms of calculating the net load, for the customer, it may be important to find out what the efficiency of a system is. So
yeah, no, I'm not worried about that, Abbas. I'm worried about the phrase referring to this as in front of the meter large systems.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
This is Matt. I don't think there's any harm in having it there. We're okay with keeping it.
I'm gonna accept this change. Thank you. Let's move on. Okay, we already went through capacity upgrade planning. Going to move that down here. The next thing that I had is detailed study, which was provided as a new definition from, I believe, Nexamp, and Abbas had I think a correction here. Let me see
No,
here.
just
This
add
is
to the
what
title.
NextAmp has proposed. Detailed study means the final phase engineering study, if necessary, conducted by the utility to determine substantial modifications to the electric power system. I spelled that out because we were confused about what EPS was, resulting in project cost estimates and a construction schedule for such modifications that would be required to provide the requested interconnection service. And Abbas, you
I just proposed adding final phase to the title detailed study, just to differentiate it and be very
final
specific.
phase detailed study?
Yeah, that's all it is. And if that is good, then we can move on.
Does anybody have an objection to that?
Yeah.
Would there be a detailed
Yes.
study at any other time?
I think final phase is kind of limiting in that definition because some projects, it's not the final phase, it's the first phase. Some projects will go directly to a detailed study. So I don't think it should be considered the final phase.
But the definition says it is final phase, right?
Well, we're saying that shouldn't be in the definition.
Okay.
And also to determine substantial modifications is kind of misleading as well, because some projects in a detailed study may not have substantial modifications. It could be connected with just like power factor mitigation or something like that. I think NextAmp said that this came from Massachusetts. Interconnection manual, and I looked up in Minnesota and Colorado, which we've been using a lot for these definitions. I'm going to put what they use as the definition in the chat, maybe just as an alternative.
Okay. So you're saying that you don't like the word final here?
Final or substantial modifications.
All right, to determine if substantial modifications are needed?
I could just remove the word substantial.
Substantial.
Okay. Or determine impacts to its electric power system. Honestly, I prefer the Minnesota and Colorado definition well, they call it study process, not detailed study, but SPS would prefer that definition of the study process.
So you want impacts?
So
Yeah.
Art, also, maybe we need to put the two phases in here on the studies, which is the system impacts, to determine system impacts. And also, that's the first phase of the studies. And then the following phase is the facility studies, which then you determine the cost of those facilities.
Yeah, well, they're defined elsewhere. And
Exactly.
System impact is defined elsewhere, although I'm not happy with definitions that refer to a place in the document.
But the detailed study needs to address that's what it will be doing, a system impact study and a facility study.
Okay, can we just say detailed study means a phase of engineering study, if necessary, conducted to determine impacts? Is that acceptable to people?
I would still prefer the Colorado.
PNM agrees. Yeah, PNM agrees with
probably.
SPS on this.
Okay.
Yep.
I would still prefer the Colorado definition.
Alternate that you have not provided.
I provided in the chat.
So you provided a study process definition, right, Matt?
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yes.
It's just a different word.
EP also agrees with that. What's in the chat?
All right.
Oh, okay.
Margie, can you search the version of the report and see if we use detailed study? Because I don't want to change the term to study process if we're using it in the report.
So while we're doing that,
yeah, we do 13 times.
13 times. All right, we're going to keep it as detailed.
I'm okay with changing study process to detailed study.
Okay.
But you would also have to check whether the terms in that new definition, like level 3 scoping meeting, exist in the report and the manual. Is that what you're going to call it?
I think
So-
that's a
That's level
non-consensus. Yeah, I think it's non-consensus. Also, I don't know if we have a feasibility study either.
Yeah. So it
So it's kind of
needs to be
pending.
realigned. It should be synchronized with whatever the manual might say.
Yeah, we just, in a proposal C2 in the report, we do have a paragraph that describes the detailed study process that, Matt, I think you helped provide that content that's in part of the application timelines. And there's a definition of each of the different types of reviews, including the detailed study process.
But does it use the words level 3 scoping meeting?
No.
Yeah, then the definition won't make sense if the manual describes the study process without the terms that are in this definition. That this definition is going to point to level 3 scoping, and there's no such
Okay.
thing.
All right. Oh, okay. Can I say interconnection request that may include? And
I like that.
Okay. And I'll just say a scoping meeting, and we'll deal with that when we deal with that. So, okay, so we have two different definitions here. That one has been changed a little bit, and the alternative, if we can't agree, I'm going to move it down to non-consensus, but I would really like to find agreement here. Does anybody feel strongly about keeping the first version of it? Does anybody object to adding the alternate?
And
Hearing
so,
none.
Arthur, do you mean to type detailed study process in the
A
alternate?
detailed study, no, just detailed study.
Yeah, thank you.
See, I told you you needed to keep me on track. Okay, so we're going to keep this one. And delete this one. Okay, thank you. All in favor of being accurate and precise. Okay, so now down to the main event here, distribution energy resource. And there's another issue here, which is the report goes back and forth because this different subgroups sometimes use the term distributed generation and sometimes DER or distributed energy resource. I know that they're not exactly the same, right? Given that distributed energy resources, it represents a broader portfolio of possible tools and technologies, right? But I didn't want to violate the meaning of DG when it's used in the report or DER. So I in putting together a hybrid here, I just added DERs include DG, and then we could just reference that. So that's my proposal. So this top one is my proposal, and then the industry group, C Area, Sunrun, and CCSA preferred their version, and I'll just read it: a source of electric power that is not directly connected to a bulk power system. DER includes both generators and energy storage technologies capable of exporting active power into an EPS, which we defined elsewhere. The DER includes customer interconnection facilities, but shall not include the area EPS operators interconnection facilities. Could somebody from the industry group speak to that definition and why it's preferable for you?
Hi, Arthur. This is Sarah Birmingham. And, we came up with this. I do think that it is just a little bit more focused, but, I I see a lot of similarities between the two definitions. I don't think that this is probably like one that we want to, this isn't the hill that we want to die on.
You don't want to go to the wall for it. Okay. I understand, and I mean, I could try and combine them again, because you do have this important aspect of capable of exporting area power, right? I mean, we could just combine them here, get rid of this, because we already talked about that. And so it would be just combining it and having it DERs are capable, and then just combine that with what's above.
I think that's a great solution. Yes.
Okay, anybody have any problems with doing it that way?
There is no problems. I would just like to propose an alternate definition to DER as proposed by NREL, which reads, distributed energy resources are small, modular energy generation and storage technologies that provide electric capacity or energy where it's needed. Typically producing less than 10 megawatts of power, DER systems can usually be sized to meet a particular need and installed on site. They can be either connected to the local electric power grid or isolated from the grid in standalone applications. Thank you.
All right, that's an awful lot of stuff for the purposes that we have here. Can I ask you to put that in writing, and we'll put it in the report, but use this as a summary of that, because that's just way too detailed.
Sure,
honestly.
no problem.
Okay. So for this purpose, we're going to have DER here. So somebody else?
Arthur, this is Tayoko. I've never seen demand response and energy efficiency considered a DER. It's a source. It's not a source. It's a
resource.
Reduction in a load. So I just haven't seen those. I'm not sure why those are in there.
This is Matt
Maybe
Hagan.
energy efficiency is out of place, but if you use the word resource, then demand response is pretty standard. It's considered a resource.
So you have to fill out a DER, you have to fill out an interconnect application to do an energy efficiency project. Is that
It has
relevant?
absolutely nothing to do with interconnection. It's
Well,
what is a distributed energy resource?
I just want to know what the relevance of having that in here for this interconnection, because we're not dealing with energy efficiency and demand response in this document.
Yeah, again, that's a fundamental question, Tayoko, in the sense that what are we trying to do with these definitions?
Right.
If we say every definition has to be adapted to the focus of the interconnection rules, then we're going to change every definition that's out there.
I
DER.
haven't been that lost in these definitions that way.
Okay, all right. So I understand, Tayoko, and since we have this kind of ad that says that this is capable of exporting active power to an EPS as part of the definition, I'm okay with deleting demand response and energy efficiency in this instance. Anybody got a problem with that?
Yeah, I mean, from the side of all literature that's out there, demand response is considered a distributed energy resource. I agree.
Yeah, but it doesn't actively export.
But that is specific to the interconnection. In other words, the DER definition has been around for a long time.
Okay, so I'm going to say may include, doesn't necessarily include.
Yeah.
And then combine this. Is that acceptable? And I'm going to say DERs may be capable.
Can we also add, oh, sorry.
It should not be this difficult, folks.
Electric vehicles and their supply equipment, because it's actually the electric vehicles chargers that are the connecting device.
Charging stations.
Chargers will be fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, this is all the since we are throwing everything. Should we mention demand?
Yeah, I
response,
know.
Resources.
What is, right? We have some hands raised. I have Jacqueline and Darren, both from MNerd. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first really briefly, let Darren talk. We agree with the definition as it is, and we, stress that we put forward this definition or, part of this definition because we wanted to make sure it aligns with the definition we are using in the New Mexico specific grid modernization roadmap. So just stressing that it's important to us. Thank you.
Okay, which one? I mean, you wanted the one that's in yellow?
No, the one that includes demand response, energy efficiency.
Oh,
electric
okay.
vehicles. Yep.
All right, so we're going to keep that in there. Darren?
Yeah, I'm just echoing what Jacqueline said. I mean, it's really a matter, it's hard to do these definitions until we see what the final document is going to include, of course, but we want it to be as broad. I mean, if we're going to be talking cost recovery and everything else in phase 2, then all of these tools need to be on the table. If you're going to meet what grid modernization is searching for, you've got loads and production matching up. And we need to keep it as general as possible so that that's front and center. But I understand. But
So the way it's going to read, the way it's going to read is distributed energy resource is a source of electric power that is not directly connected to a bulk power system. DERs may include distributed generation resources, distributed energy storage, demand response, energy efficiency, and electric vehicles and chargers that are connected to the electric distribution power grid and are capable of exporting active power.
The only question I have is on a non-exporting system. Is that not DER then, or is it?
Well, it says it may be.
Okay.
May be capable. DERs may be capable of exporting active power to an EPS. The DER includes the customer's interconnection facilities, but shall not include the area EPS operators' interconnection facilities. Does that work for everybody? Okay, moving on. We're an hour into this and we're just up to E.
Art,
go ahead.
One small thing. Where it says directly connected, I think I would like to substitute always connected.
Always connected?
Yeah, if that is acceptable to the group. That
But
is
wouldn't
connected.
wouldn't an upgrade system also be considered distributed energy resource?
Not really, because it's not a resource to the power system.
Yeah, you wouldn't count it in anything that you're doing as a utility. Is not always, Abbas, you want to add is not always?
Yeah, it's not always.
Always for directly?
So instead of directly, I would like to substitute always.
It's not always.
Yeah.
All right, so in what instances would it not be?
Well, when if it's islanding, it is not connected.
All right.
I would like to include also that then it would not qualify for off-grid systems. And here's the issue with that, because we do see in a lot of the cutout sheets that the inverters can operate on this mode. So I would leave that up to the working group consideration.
All right, I'm going to accept this as it is in the comments on version 2 that are due next week. If somebody wants to provide an alternative, then we'll consider that alternative. But I'd like to move on. Okay, we just used EPS a lot. It wasn't defined. I just pulled this, I don't know, Wikipedia, I don't know where. Just essentially saying what it is. The network of electrical components applied to supply, transfer, and use electric power, AKA the grid. Anybody have a problem with that one?
This might
No, but go ahead.
This might conflict with the IEEE use of the definition. I'm going to put the way Minnesota defines it in the chat. I guess it's slightly different, but the slight differences are a little. The facilities that deliver electric power to a load.
Means the facilities that deliver electric power to the load. All right, put it in chat, please.
I did.
Got it.
Well, I don't say, did you make any coffee?
So an electric power system could be an area power system, EPS, or it could be a local EPS that could be owned by either the utility or the customer. So I think this one's better.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're turquoise. Trying to give you the right color. Okay, since this was my definition that I inserted here, I am not wedded to it. Does anybody have a problem with what SPS is proposing?
No, I just want to point out that we did have comments on prior lines. In line 546.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish this
2.
and then we'll go back. Let me finish this and then we'll
Okay.
go back. All right. So we're going to delete this and add in this SPS version and then go back to what term?
546, where we're
I need
talking
the
about
term.
certified.
What's the term?
Compliance is not the same as certified. We just want to.
What's the term?
Certified
here?
Certified.
Certified.
All right. And where do we have compliance? UL 1741 is one standard that ensures compliance. Is that not correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, compliance is not the same as certified or listed. We just want to make that
But doesn't certification mean that it's in compliance? I'm actually,
correct.
It would have to be certified correctly, but UL 1741. I mean, I am actually kind of like on the borderline of just deleting this parenthetical here because it just is way too specific for our needs.
You can delete that because you've got the phrase nationally recognized testing laboratory in the first one.
Okay, it's gone. And then you'll see that whenever I have an additional phrase that's been separated out and put in brackets, my feeling was that it wasn't necessary. Is that okay? Does that work now? Call the dispute? Resolve the controversy?
Yes, thank you. And just before we go back to the point where we were before, in line 554 for customer, we have an alternate definition that's proposed. As an interconnection customer means any person that proposes to interconnect its generating facility with a utility system.
All right, well, that's a different definition. This is more generally, but you want it to say interconnection customer?
Correct.
Interconnection customer. Does anybody have any objection? I'll write it out.
Yeah, this is Ron Fax Davidson. I guess my question is to make sure that whatever is used would allow for a third-party generator system, which is supplying the power to a customer of the utility, which is typically, as indicated, a retail customer under a PPA.
Well, would you have a PPA at the distribution level?
Yes,
That
And
is
we
not
want to make
always
it,
the case. That is not always the case.
Well, it's not, I mean, it's not always the case, but it may be the case.
exactly.
Okay, so I'm adding in person or entity to cover that, and interconnection customer means any person or entity that proposes to interconnect its generating facility with the utility system. Would we change generating facility to DER? Or just generating system because it's broader? And then we would call this new, and it would go down into the alpha order later on. Does everybody have a problem with adding this definition? And it doesn't change customer above, because we may have more general references to customers. Okay, moving on. All right, we get a purple here. Can you read this purple? I mean, I'll uncolor it for the time being, so it's easier to read. And this was migrated up from 3.9 energy storage system, means any commercially available customer-sited system or utility-sited system, including batteries paired with on-site generation that does not generate energy, that is capable of retaining, storing, and delivering electrical energy by chemical, thermal, mechanical, or other means. I believe that this is a fairly common definition. Does anybody have any problems with it?
Yeah, Art, I raised a flag on that. That does not generate energy. How does that happen? Or when does that happen?
Well, energy storage is not considered a generation technology. Well, actually, it is considered both a load and a
And
generator.
a resource, exactly. So, but it's confusing to say it does not generate energy. That is the phrase that I was objecting
Okay.
to.
So if we just took out that does not, I know what the meaning is intending to do, but if we say that it's capable of retaining, storing, and delivering.
Yeah, that is capable of, exactly. That's fine. That is acceptable to me if it's acceptable to the group.
In that respect, would it be considered a generating facility?
You know, I mean, I think FERC considers storage both generating and load.
Exactly. Miles up and miles down. Yep.
Okay. We good with this?
We have here, we would just like to add for 566, which would be energy storage by itself. FERC does not consider it a qualifying generating facility. Energy storage does not create generation. Thank you.
Energy storage does not create generation. Is that?
That's. So maybe we should keep that does not generate energy.
That's a borderline a philosophical discussion. If it only stores the energy that has been generated, but it discharges the energy at a different time scale.
Yeah, so it is generating. And FERC recognizes that it can generate.
This is Adam. I think FERC does not recognize that it generates. It, like Olga said, it just dispatches energy, but a battery does not generate electricity.
Oh.
Okay. I think the California ISO considers it generation and load, but I might be wrong on that. In any event, does this definition say what we needed to say? Somebody wants to add something about FERC does not recognize storage as a qualifying generator? Is that what it is?
Art, I'll go look
Correct.
it up and I'll place it in the chat, but you guys can move on. I don't want to hold up the discussion, but when I get the language, I'll put it in the chat with the citation to it.
Okay. Are we okay with moving on?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, and let's not get hung up on it.
Why not? I mean, hell, we're only on the E's.
It's a
All
little
right.
bit of a philosophical discussion, that's Olga
Yeah,
said.
all right. Okay, so export capacity means the amount of alternating current, electrical energy that an interconnected resource, I think it's interconnected resource.
We have a comment on a prior definition.
All right, we'll come back
That
to
would
this. Which
be,
one is it?
568, version 2. It's with regards to facilities study. We couldn't
Facility study. That's
locate
after this.
that
That's after
definition.
export, right? All right, now let's get to that after we deal with export capacity, since F comes after E. Okay, does anybody have a problem with this definition of export capacity?
What line would that be in version 2?
It was in section 3.9, and so it's way down there.
Art, you might want to say electrical power and energy. In other words, in different contexts, you're saying kilowatts, and in other contexts, you're saying kilowatt hours.
And or?
Yeah.
Electrical power and or?
Power and energy, yeah.
All right, so it reads export capacity means the amount of alternating current, electrical power and or energy that an interconnected resource is intended to transfer to the utility system across the point of interconnection. That work?
Yep.
All right, facility study. I'm sorry, back to facility study. There was no, I didn't like the fact that it refers to just a section without actually defining it, because it really didn't. So this is what I fashioned together. I said facility study determines the equipment and electrical switching configurations necessary to accomplish the interconnection and estimate the cost, construction, and installation time. Somebody was offering something different on facilities?
I have a quick suggestion. Should this include a short circuit study in the list of things that you mentioned?
Short circuit study?
Short circuit studies.
I don't know. Somebody tell me what your facility study does.
You mean the protection and coordination study?
Yeah, we could do that.
I think we usually do that in the system impact study phase.
Okay.
I don't think facility study should include electrical switching configuration.
Okay.
The current New Mexico Interconnection Manual has a definition of facility study already that is a little bit more detailed than this. I'll put it in the chat for reference.
Facility study specifies and estimates the cost, equipment. Okay. If this is a definition that's already being used, I'm inclined to use it. Hold on. B. Okay, so it reads, facility study specifies and estimates the cost of equipment, engineering, procurement, and construction work, including overheads needed to implement the conclusions of the system impact study, and that's taken from the existing rule. Does anybody have a problem with that definition?
PNM has consensus with SPS on this item. Thank you.
Okay.
EPE as well.
Okay, I'm inclined to accept that since I was the one that put in this other one. So, moving on to fault current, which apparently has a couple of proposed changes, including the addition of the phrase from one conductor. So it'll read, electrical current that flows from one conductor to ground or to another conductor due to an abnormal connection between the two. An electrical fault can be such as phase to ground, double phase to ground. I don't think that this is complete. Is there something missing, Matt? An electrical fault can be something missing there?
I think it might have just been a typo in our edits. I think remove such as.
Yeah, almost maybe the whole second sentence is not needed.
Well, you could also say an electrical fault caused by phase to ground, double phase to ground, three phase to ground, phase to phase, and three phase.
Can be caused by?
I think we can dig ourselves into a lot of definitions because there could also be equipment originated fault and so on, and we don't want to.
Yeah. You know, we don't have to accommodate every possible thing in the thing. All right, so one, is this accurate? Two, is it necessary? I mean, we had it in the original.
It's consistent or based on the IEEE general definition that we made.
Anybody have a problem with it? I mean, it's essentially just adding a phrase.
Yeah.
That helps define it a little bit more.
And Art, instead of abnormal, I would like to say unintended connection between the two.
Oh, you don't think that there could be intended? You want unintended?
Yes. Hopefully it's not intended.
Is that okay, Matt?
I'm wondering if it unintended is the right word, but I think it's okay. Because
we could do
it could be like
it's peculiar.
An intended, right? It could be an intended switching.
Yeah, but that is
like
that's not a fault.
That's an accident.
That's not a fault, though.
Yeah.
That is a.
Well, it can be a fault if you don't switch correctly and cause a fault.
Well, that's unintended. I mean.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I meant. I don't know.
Right.
Like,
all right.
It's the difference of those words. So yeah.
Right. All right. I'm gonna leave unintended and move on. Generating capacity. We had a whole new proposal of a definition, Matt, and so tell me how you're different here. And we are talking about nameplate capacity of a generating facility and alternating current, except where such capacity is limited by derating or a limiting mechanism, such as generation controls, or any of the limiting methods described in section wherever that is. For the purposes of certain capacity screens as defined in blah, 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 generating capacity shall be utilized, not including inadvertent export or fault current. Screening process shall be utilized. So it seems like there's something missing here. Screening process level eligibility as defined for each review level shall utilize the nameplate rating of the generate facility. That's an issue that I had a question about. Does this change any of the meaning of what we're talking about I think people wanted to use nameplate instead of rated capacity, but so there's two issues here. One is that it's really long, and two is that I'm not understanding this sentence, generating capacity shall be utilized.
I think we can simplify that for you. We do agree with SPS on generating capacity being the maximum nameplate rating of a generating facility in alternating current, AC, period.
Yeah, okay.
So the first
can we
part,
just lose all the rest of it? So somebody thought that it was important to have the limiting mechanisms and the deratings in here. I think that was the point.
Hi, Arthur. This is Tayoko.
Hey, Yoko. Hi.
Yeah, this is defined and taken from the IREC definitions, and it was specifically addressing storage or inverters that might be limited by power controls, and it specifically does limit, identify as net capacity, taking out those limiting or generating systems or
all right.
storage systems.
Tell me what it should say.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what it says
Tell me
right
what it
now.
should say.
Generating capacity of above is, and actually, part of the problem with this is that a sentence, a couple of words were dropped from generating capacity in the original IREC, because this is taken right from it, except it's missing about 5 words. So if you read generating capacity as nameplate rating, except where such capacity is limited by any of the methods of limiting electrical export in the section, and then it says the generating capacity shall be the net capacity as limited through the use of such methods, not including inadvertent export. So this is directly from IREC. And so after generating capacity, it says shall be the net capacity.
Shall the generating capacity, we're looking at the top one or the bottom?
No, the bottom one. After the generating capacity, after those words, on the one that's highlighted up above, shall be the net capacity as limited through the use of such methods, not including inadvertent export.
All right. Then it's where this word utilized is, right? I'm not hearing you say utilized.
Yeah, it's after generating capacity.
Yeah.
Before shall. Oh, I'm sorry. After shall be the net capacity as limited through the use of such methods. Not including inadvertent export yet. And it doesn't say utilized. So that's not in there.
Okay. Do we need the last sentence, screening process level eligibility is defined for each level shall utilize nameplate rating of the generating facility? That seems to be defining screening process rather than generating capacity.
Yeah.
We don't find consensus as PNM on this definition. Thank you.
Well, what do you want?
As was mentioned before, generation capacity means the maximum nameplate rating of a generating facility in alternating current.
Period.
Thank you.
That's all you want.
Thank you.
This is SPS. So the changes that we made were to delineate between the use of the, I guess I'll use the words Tayoko, I think it was Tayoko used, net capacity. Should be used for, can be used for the capacity related screens, but the non-capacity related screens shall use the nameplate rating, maximum nameplate rating. And that's why we have that last sentence there, that the screen process level, like determining between level 1 and level 2, should use the nameplate rating because of the non-export, non-capacity related screens.
Again, is that really part of a definition, or is that part of a policy?
I think it's part of a policy. And again, these are definitions, and shall use or anything prescriptive doesn't need to be in a definition. It should be in the policy.
And
it depends on how the words generating capacity are used in the policy. If we define or put this in here in the definition, then we don't have to specify it in the policy multiple times.
But the place still is you're making the policy. See, that's where I almost like the Iowa style better. That the definition of generating capacity is as defined in section such and such.
Yeah, EPE concurs with PNM. We just like to have the definition and not put any exceptions or definitions. We want to keep it very simple so that it's a nameplate rating of the facility on the AC side, which will be connected to the utility.
I really don't want to move this down into non-consensus. Can we just agree on the most simple definition as proposed by PNM and EPE? Generating capacity means the maximum nameplate rating of a generating facility in alternating current period, and then leave the rest to defining in some process somewhere?
That's not acceptable for the industry.
All right, then we're going to move on. And
Yeah,
we're gonna
Arthur,
move to
I think this was a substantive discussion during the technical issues about the terms that we're going to use for the screening level. So I don't think we can arbitrate. I think we might engage Eric, but look back at the language under screening level in the report to preserve the content of the working group consensus or non-consensus there. So this is a significant one. We need to circle back.
Okay.
Well, this is Eric. I just thought I'd mention now that the proposal for the screening levels does say that determination of which level is based on solely on nameplate capacity.
Yes.
And so that might be bolstered in some way, but it is there already in the policy part.
Good, thank you, Eric. So we need a definition of that and net capacity or net rating we have further down in our definition. So we'll get there, net rating. Okay, thank you, Eric.
All right, well, all I can do is move this down into non-consensus at this point, although it seems like it's a pretty basic definition. But we have either a simplified or one that goes into a lot more specifics. Okay, another one that's probably going to be controversial, inadvertent export. We actually have 3 versions here. We have the original version proposed by Abbas and the subgroup at Satish. We have inadvertent export means the unscheduled or unintended export of power from a facility exceeding a specified magnitude and for a limited duration. Inadvertent export does not include fault current exported by the facility due to a fault in the utility EPS. And then we had something that was used in section 3.8. I'm going to take the color off of it so it's easier to read. Sorry. Inadvertent export means the potential condition in which a normally non-exporting or limited exporting DER experiences a momentary export that does not exceed limitations specified in proposal I2. I don't really like that specified in proposal, I would say it does not exceed specified limitations. Eric, you were using this in your section. This is a definition pulled from section 3. Is there a substantive difference among these that would lead us to choose one over the other?
I'm not aware of any, and I believe the one of these two came from Colorado, but I don't know which one.
The second one.
The second. Okay. Is any of them inaccurate or incorrect?
I would say it seems to me that
I'm sorry, can't hear you.
This is Matt. I think maybe the first one, exceeding a specified magnitude. Sometimes it's hard to specify a magnitude when a customer's load is changing. So maybe that one isn't as good as the second one.
Okay.
Sorry,
Anybody
this is
have-
Eric. I was disconnected.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
For a minute, I was also saying that I think this one is the most specific, so I would suggest if people can agree on the second one, we just go with that.
On the second one?
Yeah.
SBS agrees.
Okay.
You
Anybody
might
else?
even-
Or sorry,
might even
sorry,
consider dropping
the
second
third one.
line.
The
second
bottom one I
line,
meant.
I'm sorry, we got two people talking once. Matt
Sorry, I
and
meant
Satish.
the bottom one, the
The
bolded
bottom
one.
one you preferred.
Yeah, that one was the one that's from Colorado.
Okay, but do you have any objection to using the green one?
Yeah, the specified magnitude is
Oh,
maybe hard to define. It's the same as the, yeah.
All right. I'm not quite sure what to do here.
Right click and yeah, that works too.
We're gonna get rid of this one, and we're going. Does anybody have a problem using the third one since it is already in the report, and we just changed specified limitations instead of identifying some limitations in somewhere else?
So that Colorado definition has the word momentary. And that's
Momentary export.
Yeah, that's problematic because there are some, if I remember from the discussions, there are some very specific ranges of time associated with inadvertent export.
I'm not following you.
It was something like there was a total period specified that you can exceed 1 hour, or then there was something about a few minutes. There's some language that was discussed as to if you have an inadvertent export, how long does it last? It's certainly not momentary.
I thought it was like 2 seconds or 10 seconds, or am I confusing that with something else?
And that was.
Okay.
I
So
would
can we
drop the
say
momentary.
short-term export?
I would just drop it because you are saying does not exceed specified limitations. And
So we're
those
just
limitations.
losing the word momentary.
Yeah.
Do you experience an export? Do you experience an export event? What are you actually experiencing?
I think we should keep the word momentary. I think that 1 hour reference was to the total amount of time. It should not be all in a row. I think momentary is appropriate.
But I don't know how many momentaries there are in 1 hour. It's a conflict.
Well, do we need to?
Momentary is saying if you had a millisecond to export.
Yeah, so momentary, I agree with the math. We need to leave the word momentary. It's not defined, but it doesn't need to be defined because we will define it later to specify limitations.
Yes.
But it's good to have also the word momentary so it's clear. And
You might expand on specified limitations to say specified limitations in terms of magnitude, duration, and frequency or something like that.
Right, anything other than momentary, because momentary means nothing.
Anybody have a problem with what Eric just said? In terms of magnitude or duration? Was there another word in there?
Frequency and frequency.
Magnitude, duration, and frequency. And in terms of momentary, it might be, you could say something, inadvertent again, or unplanned, or undesired, unscheduled, maybe unplanned.
Might be limiting in the definition. I don't know, maybe it's not inadvertent export shouldn't exceed thermal service, voltage, power quality, or network limits. And I think we say
You're making my head hurt.
Sorry. What about does not exceed limitations as specified in this manual?
Yeah, I don't like referring. I really don't like referring to it because this definition may get put into the rule or something.
Okay.
All right. Can we live with this? Inadvertent export means potential condition in which a normally non-exporting or limited exporting DER experiences an unplanned, momentary export that does not exceed specified limitations in terms of magnitude, duration, or frequency.
I would just recommend using the word unscheduled instead of planned.
Unscheduled?
Unscheduled is something very determined and specific that, exports have to follow a scheduled pattern. So it goes with the operation terminology. So.
Yeah, I still don't like the word momentary in there. I think people will read too much into that.
As specified. Well, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it and move on.
I think we would probably have to refer to UL 1741 CRD for those limitations in that respect. I think that's where those are established.
You want to say in terms of magnitude, duration, or frequency as specified in UL 1741? I'm okay with that because we refer to UL 1741. You got a problem with that?
And And that way you can remove that momentary.
And now you can remove momentary. And now we can remove momentary. Okay. DER experiences an unscheduled export that does not exceed specified limitations in terms of magnitude, duration, or frequency as specified in UL 1741. Then I would take out specified here. Can we move on?
Okay.
All right. New interconnection facilities. This was proposed by SPS. Matt?
I don't think this is new. I think it's the next one down. I don't. This is in there twice. I don't know why.
Interconnection facilities. You're right. And it's in the wrong place. X. So it's an alternative to this. But we actually have 3 of them.
I think it's the same. It's just the formatting's different.
Okay. All right. So let's deal with these. We don't have any changes here. Interconnection customer, interconnection equipment package. I think we had interconnection customer from above.
We do have a comment on 596 to 599 in terms of the interconnection equipment package.
Okay, hold on.
And we're Mhm.
All right.
596.
Before we get there.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. We talked about interconnection before, interconnection customer before in refining customer. So we actually had a definition of interconnection customer. So can we choose one or the other? I kind of like the second one because it's not so verbose. Anybody?
And like the
My only
second as
problem
well.
with that second one, it's the fact that they seek interconnection doesn't mean that they already have an agreement, right?
That proposal, well, they're still your customer, whether they buy or not. They walk in the door, they're a customer.
Yeah, but at that point, they don't have an interconnection agreement yet.
But I think what, I guess I don't know who was talking. What you're saying is in the screening and study process, they would be referred to as an applicant after the interconnection agreement, and in the design construction phase, they'd be referred to as an interconnection customer. So I don't know how
Correct.
we're referring to them now, I guess, in the report. What do we, Margie, do we use? Which one do we use more, interconnection customer or applicant?
Stand by, let me look. I know we use applicant a lot in the process of defining.
I believe for the technical issues discussions throughout, we pretty consistently used applicant
Yeah.
for application.
That applies.
Interconnection customer, we use 24 times. Especially in C in our timelines. We use both. So in timelines, we use the customer for completeness review, and then we talk about the applicant and supplemental review. It looks like we have a mixed use. Interconnection. sorry.
You might have to do some cleaning up then.
Yep. Yep. Mostly in the utilities proposal for the timeline, interconnection customer is the term used.
So maybe I'm kind of leaning towards the second one just to keep it simple and we don't have to clean as much up. Just refer to the interconnection customer the whole way through the process. We could say add or applicant. I don't know if it's important to make the distinction.
Yeah, we used applicant 45 times. A lot in the definitions.
So what I'm saying
can
is
we
like
use the second one here? And since we changed the word to applies, which kind of infers, I mean, standard English means somebody that applies is an applicant. We don't have to define applicant.
I'm okay with that.
Okay. Moving on, I'm sorry, I think it was PNM was talking about interconnection equipment package. And again, I'm not sure where this came from. Was this in the originals?
That is correct. That is correct, and we are unsure of where this definition is used. Is this meant again from in front of the meter systems or behind the meter systems? And we're interested in knowing what the basis or intent of this definition is. It hasn't.
Because
we
it's
weren't able
referred to
find that.
it's referred to in other places is why it's in here.
Where is the definition used?
I saw interconnection equipment package in another definition. Margie, can you do a word search for interconnection equipment package or just equipment package? See if it comes up in other places.
6, let's see, we've got it in our definitions. And 3 times in the footnote.
Only the definitions, right?
Just in the definitions, I don't see it anywhere else.
So it's in footnotes, but not.
Well, footnotes in the definitions section.
All right, well, it's got to get defined then. I mean, is there a problem with this definition?
No, we're just wanting to know the basis or intent of the definition for a definition.
The basis or the intent? The intent is so that when
like
somebody comes upon the phrase, they say, oh, what is that referring to?
Yeah.
And they go to the definition and then they see.
Correct. And we're wondering where in this text is that definition used? Where else?
Well, obviously it's used in
the definition section.
Yes, it's used in supporting the definition for a generating facility, unless we change that. So it's part of that definition, and it's part of. That's the only other place it's used, Leon.
I'm not understanding the objection. I'm not understanding the objection.
In terms of, and this is where we're going with that, in terms of 576 and 577, PNM has no consensus on that definition.
And what are you referring to? What's the term?
Generating facility. To include interconnection equipment package.
Okay, well, we moved that down into non-consensus.
Correct, and that's the reason why.
Okay.
Well, it's still going to get defined. I'm going to keep it. Let's move on. Interconnection facilities. We have a really long proposal from SPS on that, and I'm wondering if we need it all. But basically, it's entirely different. So, Matt? interconnection facilities means?
The main intent is to provide the distinction between sole use facilities that are required for the interconnection and system upgrades that, for example, would be like a single phase upgrade to a 3-phase or something like that. So that's the main reason. Colorado has a similar definition. I actually took this from Minnesota interconnection procedure. It provided a little more detail and distinction between what are utility interconnection facilities and what are customer interconnection facilities.
Okay. One is that you're defining it with the same word, means the utilities, connection facilities, and the customers. So if we got rid of that sentence, or are you saying that that's necessary to say that this is? Could we just say interconnection facilities include all facilities and equipment, both customer and utility, right? Something like that.
Sorry, I was on mute. I think we need to specify both the utility and the customer's facilities.
Was that
PNM
your?
proposes to do away. PNM proposes to do away with line 602 to 605, as PNM would not agree to customer-owned interconnection equipment on utility side of the point of common coupling.
I'm confused as to what we do about this.
Does this definition here in blue satisfy PNM suggestion?
I do have a question. Why are we including the customers' interconnection facilities in the interconnection facilities? I mean, I would like to use more the definition that's from FERC, which it just relates to the electrical wire switches and the necessary equipment. Yep. Oops. I was reading that one above.
Oh, sorry.
Required to provide the customer allowing a connection. I like the first sentence of that definition that you have on top. If we're going to refer, I think it's important for us to distinguish between the utilities interconnection facilities and the customer interconnection facilities. Because we're going to be building the utility side, but the customer has to build his side. And if we just interchange it, I mean, and this is important only in the cost part. When we identify facilities and what cost it will be involved. So if we can differentiate between the two, I think it make the understanding for both parties clear as to what is it that they need to build and what is it that the utilities will be building and what the customer will be responsible for. I mean, for the cost.
Is that all necessary in a definition, or is that in a policy?
No, I mean, that's why I'm stating that it's important for us to distinguish between the utility interconnection facilities and the customer interconnection facilities.
All right, I'm going to recommend. I'm for the temporarily. I'm going to move this down to non-consensus. Can somebody can you guys talk to each other and send me a definition that you can agree on? We'll waive antitrust enforcement for that. Anybody? Okay, moving on.
Hey, Art, this is Eric. I don't know if it's still only 10 minutes left or if you're going to extend the time. But
We're going to
since
have
I
to
joined-
extend. I mean, look this. We're here at material modification, which is a big deal. We have at least 6 or 7 new additionals.
Okay, yeah, I just thought I'd check in with you because I joined the call late and I wasn't sure if there was anything in the first hour that that you might want to run by me or.
No,
or,
when we hit the purple ones, that's when you came in. So that's fine.
Oh, okay. Because I'll be able to stay for about another 15 or 20 minutes, I guess. But if there's anything else,
Well, let's
either
see
related
here.
to the
We
definitions
got
or not.
non-exporting system down below, and we got operating mode down below. Those are the 2 that were grafted from the other portion.
Okay. Well, I'll just hang on if you
All right.
if you get.
Can we get through a material modification, which SPS wanted a really long detail of what it is and what it isn't and all that. So can we reach an agreement on what we should say here?
SPS's definition of material modification came from Minnesota interconnection process, and the long description there that was from a footnote, and we've liked that in Minnesota because it kind of sets the expectations and guides the decision making for material modifications, and I think that's important for reducing disputes.
Can I move it into the policy discussion in the main report and just keep the first part of your definition here?
Sure.
I'm gonna move.
PNM concurs
Move to
with
the other
that
side of town
definition that-
to report. And okay, and we're going to keep this material modification, and we're going to delete this one. Anybody wedded to the original definition? Hearing none. Minor system modification. Somebody had a problem with this one. I think it was the
All right.
5,000.
I don't know if you want to do this. I don't know if you want to do this now, but we skipped over 607, 609, which is island. The definition for what an island is constituted. I don't know if you want to go back to that or.
Well, I'm there now. So what do you got?
Okay. Is this a reference to intentional islanding? Otherwise, islanding refers to a condition when a generation or a generator remains active on a line section that has been isolated for maintenance or due to a fault from the remainder of the electric power system. PNM wouldn't allow a third party to transmit energy at distribution levels using the utility-owned electric power system to other customers. That would be considered a utility.
I'm not quite sure that that's relevant, but Abbas Satish, this was your original definition.
Satish, are you still here? Abbas had to leave.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I apologize. This is just a blanket definition of what an island or islanding is. I agree, it does not say anything about whether it's allowed, proper, improper, anything of that sort. So again, I don't know whether it needs more words, but the intent was simply to say this is what an island is.
All right. Well, it seems to be that the serving customers is the problem.
Correct.
For maintenance or due to a fault?
And maybe Art, one thing
Yeah.
to help clear the definition above. I mean, it unintendedly delivers power to customers. That's what an island does. It isolates that portion, but maybe I mean, it just needs to say that on the definition above that unintendedly delivers power to customers.
Hold on. Oh. Okay, that and it's that
Unintendedly,
one or more generating facility deliver power to customers using a portion of the, I mean, it's really kind of convoluted.
we're okay with that definition, but we just want to clarify that, I mean, the island will be on an unwanted event in this case. Because we don't, so we want to say unintendedly deliver power to customers. That's why we have anti-islanding, because we want to prevent that from happening, so.
Unintendedly.
Isn't there also the possible intentional island for loads to be served?
Like
by
microgrids,
multi-generator?
right? Microgrids would do that.
We're not covering microgrids here. That's why I did consider the microgrids, but we're not addressing microgrids here. So whenever we address microgrids, then we can modify that definition. But since microgrids are not covered part of this scope of this discussion, then I don't see any problem with using that word.
But again, maybe I'm being a purist. And I think somebody just pointed out, it's really unintentional and intentional islanding. Those are the phrases that really make sense. An island, there's nothing in the definition of an island that says it's unintended.
All right. Can we use this second that was proposed by PNM as the first sentence and then add in unintentional islanding is a condition and add that in to that, right? Combine the two.
Yeah, I think that'll work. But again, you would have to say an island can be unintentional or intentional.
Yeah, well, I mean, it would. I
Under
mean,
these conditions
it's
of
just
island,
is.
So the issue
under the conditions of island, we wouldn't allow a third-party generator to use the utilities lines to transmit power. That would constitute a utility.
Yes, that's why I was mentioning that part, because I agree with you that an island, yes, it could be intentional or unintentional, But the utilizations of the utility system makes them a utility, and we cannot agree to that. I mean, if we go into microgrid, then I mean, whatever rules prevail then, that will be different. But right now, we have to keep to the current definition that no third party can utilize the utility system to export power, serve power to others. And that is true. I mean,
I don't disagree at all, Roberto. But it doesn't change what an island is.
Oh,
that you don't allow it does not change the meaning of island.
Hey, Art, this is Eric. I might point out that nowhere in our report is the word island used, other than one reference to an anti-islanding inverter and another as island as a territory. But otherwise, island only appears in the definitions section, and there is an unintended islanding under U in the definitions at the very end. But I don't know that it doesn't. We don't actually.
I'm gonna cut this out. We're just gonna keep this. We're gonna keep this as a very basic definition.
Yeah.
Is this correct? Generator remains active on a line section that has been isolated due to maintenance or due to a fault. And can we keep this and then move on? Yes, no? Yes. Moving on. All right, minor system modification. We had a difference here that does not include a dollar figure, does include new sentence, minor modifications shall not require utility design or construction. Is this acceptable?
We have a point for 615, which refers to material modification. Sorry, we're going by the numbers of version 2.
Yeah, go ahead. We already said that we were going to keep this, but go ahead.
What we want to say with respect to that is that a change to the point of interconnection would not be considered a material modification. Instead, the application would have to be resubmitted under a new application, or it would require a reset in the queue processing. And we would like to reiterate footnote 12 in the version 2 of the document to leave the item up to the utility's discretion and consideration. Thank you.
All right, that's not a definition. But you wanted to add a change would require a new application? I mean, what is the change you want?
Right, a change to the point of interconnection. A change to the point.
The point interconnection would require a new application.
No.
That's what you're saying?
Would not be would not be considered a material modification to the project.
Change to the point of interconnection would not be considered?
Right.
Why?
As a material modification of the project.
Well, that
because
seems
that's
like
a
it would
totally
be a pretty
different
important
application.
change.
Well, then it would be a material modification. That's the way material modification is used. If something is a material modification, it would require a new application. It would go through the process again. So it would be a material modification.
Yeah, it would not be a minor modification. I'm just going to say a change to the point of interconnection would require a new application.
A reset in the queue of the process.
Well, which is it?
I think what he's saying is that they wouldn't have to necessarily apply again and pay the interconnection or the application fee again. They would just go to the back of the line.
Or change in queue?
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Thank you for clarification.
Or, I'm sorry. What happened there? Is that acceptable? A change to the point of interconnection would require a new application or a change in queue position?
Arthur, I just want to just say something here.
Yeah, Jim.
It seems that we are definition after definition getting into our
policy.
The definitions, getting into policy, and I'm concerned that we are right here. I'm not necessarily disagreeing about this, but I think there was a whole topic of discussion about how we deal with interconnection queues, and this seems to be getting into that area.
Noted. That's why I did wanted to take out all this other stuff. Okay. Minor modifications. Does anybody have an objection to the proposed amendment and revision? Really, all we're losing is the example of hours of work or materials.
On point of minor modifications, we would like to say the following. After our project undergoes screening, it will be determined.
That's policy. That's policy.
Improvement.
That's policy. That's not a definition.
So Art, we do not use minor system modifications anywhere in the report with the exception of this definition section.
Thank you.
It's used in the IREC model, though, in the manual.
I'm going to delete the first one and keep the second one. Non-export system. Again, I'm going to take out the purple so you can read it better. This was also taken from section 3.9. Non-export system means an interconnection resource that is designed so it does not intentionally transfer electrical energy to the utility's distribution or transmission system across the point of common coupling. Such systems may be used to supply part or all of the customer's load continuously or during an outage. A system can be non-exporting by virtue of inverter programming or some other online limiting element. Non-exporting systems may or may not produce inadvertent exports as defined in paragraph G of this rule. I'm going to take out that. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, we're really sorry to do this to you, but we spent more than 16 hours looking at these definitions, and we're skipping to different areas. We would like to go back to 624. We feel that's an important definition.
What is the definition?
It's
what is the term?
Nameplate rating.
Nameplate rating.
Okay.
Good. For nameplate rating, in terms of the singular, refers to the rated maximum operating capacity of a piece of electrical equipment. We would like to propose that definition.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not seeing what you have here. Because I didn't print it out. Please either put it in the chat or read it for me.
Yeah, sure. it's very short, so I can read it to you. I don't have access to the chat. Nameplate rating, parentheses, singular, refers to the rated maximum operating capacity of a piece of electrical equipment.
Piece of electrical equipment. You want name plate rating refers to the rated maximum operating capacity of a piece of electrical equipment.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Does anybody have a problem with that one as opposed to what was originally proposed?
If we add as defined by the manufacturer.
As defined by the manufacturer, that's interesting. Okay.
Okay.
Anybody got a problem with it? And you actually spent 16 hours on that definition? I think that maybe
No, not on that definition. On the whole 11 pages that were submitted.
Okay.
I
didn't spend 11 hours. I didn't spend 16 hours putting it together. I don't care.
Right. It's very important for us.
Okay. Moving on to non-exporting system. This was grafted from another part of the report. Has anybody got a problem with this? Hearing none. Operating mode again.
Hey, Art,
or
this is
non-export.
Okay, non-export. What? Non-export, right. It's above this. Means generating facilities sized and designed using any of the methods. Yeah, I don't like this because it's referring to that. Tell me what you had. I just don't have your paper in front of me.
For point 628 on non-export, we included supplemental material as to the theory of operation of non-export, zero export inverters. Just for
that's wonderful, but
clarification.
that's wonderful, but that's not a definition.
Okay, we're fine with that. We'll put it as a comment.
Okay.
Hey, Art, this is Eric.
Yeah,
we need to look at ongoing operating capacity for a moment, even though it's not highlighted.
All right, let me finish this. I don't like in non-export referring to methods in section 3.9. Is there a way that we can, is sized and designed such that the output, so we just lose this, such that the output is used for host load only and not electrical energy? Okay. Sorry, Eric, ongoing operating capacity?
Yeah, two things. The very last part of the paragraph there refers to 3855 B and D. That needs to be changed to section 3.9.
Yeah, I don't want to refer to sections in the definitions. How do we deal with that?
That actually came from Colorado, I think. I think it was copy pasted.
Yeah.
It's referring to the technical screens which are in the manual.
So certain, which we used within, get rid of
No, we need certain.
certain.
We need
You
certain.
need certain.
Yeah.
Yeah, for paragraph 631 to 636, relating to ongoing operating capacity, PNM asks that does it be redlined or put in a non-consensus for further discussion? Thank you.
The problem is that we deleted some text from proposal I on non-export limited export systems that that refers to ongoing operating capacity. So to complete for proposal I to actually stand as complete, we actually need to have a definition of ongoing operating capacity that's part of either proposal I or consensus definitions in order for there to be consensus on what the term means and therefore what proposal I is posing. And this is the second point here on this paragraph is when it refers to in
I think they're looking for a professor,
the word capacity,
not somebody from El Paso.
only the capacity, the third line from the bottom, only the capacity that is designed to inject electricity to the utilities distribution system. So that capacity actually is the definition of ongoing operating capacity. Only the capacity, maybe parentheses, ongoing operating capacity that is designed or only the capacity which is defined as ongoing operating capacity that is designed to, something like that. Because that capacity is actually what we're referring to in the definition. Yeah, exactly. Ongoing operating capacity.
Okay.
And strictly speaking,
you've completely lost me. I'm just like trying to type what you wrote, but
yeah. Well,
the
strictly
issue
speaking,
is that we refer to this in one of the proposals without defining it. Can this be
right.
moved into that place?
And so technically speaking, if this is a non-consensus definition, the proposal becomes non-consensus as well, because this definition actually says what the proposal means.
Okay.
And this originally was in the proposal, this definition in the proposal text, but in the last revision, it was removed.
Did I do that?
Yeah. It was a comment from, I forget which of the three utilities, redline that essentially the whole paragraph.
Okay, so it's obviously PNM because they want to redline it. What is your objection, PNM, to defining this term?
I think it's related to the generating capacity that they had the alternate to as well.
But we're not referring to generating capacity.
Actually, when SPS was reviewing this, we're kind of wondering if performance AC rating shouldn't be changed to generating capacity, because I think that's what we're referring to. But they're related.
I don't think there's a problem changing performance AC ratings to generating capacity if nobody objects, and that would, if that would resolve the issue.
I don't object. I don't think it's going to resolve PNM's issue though.
Why can't you just, I mean, isn't this like the most common of terms here?
Well, the utilities originally proposed this term ongoing operating capacity drawing from the Colorado text. So the phrase originally came from utilities. We were proposing alternative sorts of language to mean the same thing, but we settled on this language because it seemed like the utilities, agreed to it or wanted it this way.
It came from SPS because that's what we're using in Colorado, so we're okay with it. Just based on that fact that we're using the same thing elsewhere.
Well, if I have an objection, but I'm not hearing why there's an objection.
I mean, you can put it in non-consensus art, and nobody will probably ever really understand what the implication is for the proposal itself in doing that, strictly speaking. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah, well, since we have a lot of non-consensus stuff, it's all going to have to go to the commission anyway.
it would stand as a point of inconsistency, but there are a lot of others aren't there already.
Yeah. All right. While Eric is here, can we move on to this is the last one that came from section 3.9, operating mode. Any problems with using this? No
problems.
New definition, parallel operation. This was from SPS. Any problems with it? Power control system. Similarly, we had an alternate here, which includes reference to 1741 CRD. The problem I had with this was that there was a footnote that explained what this was about, and I didn't want the footnote to be in the definitions, but we can. I mean, I'm okay with it, but I do not really think that we need this certification, the next sentence, because that's not a definition. Can I delete that?
I think it's just clarifying the difference between
the
two.
And we're going to keep power control system as qualified by reference to 1741. Okay. Power rating configuration setting. Also, we had, I'm not quite sure what the difference is, as set by the manufacturer is really the only difference. Is that okay with everybody? Did I lose like most people? Are we down to 2 people?
I think Roberto
We're still
dropped
here.
off.
I think we might have all been muted.
Okay. Right. Is this okay to add in as set by the manufacturer, which is consistent with something that we put in previously? Hearing none. All right. Secondary network, a new definition here, and this is SPS. Where did this come from, and is this necessary? Basically.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going back to my notes on this one. It's related to the area network, delineating those differences.
Do we use it? Does it come up?
It might come up in the screens.
Okay. All right. I don't like defining a word with the same word. So secondary network is a system with its secondaries. Is there another term for secondaries?
That's clarified a little in the last sentence that the spot networks.
Two types
and it's
of
on the secondary
secondary
side.
Yeah.
But this overlaps what we just did with the area network. Maybe we can combine.
Combine. Now it's got to be separate definition. I mean, if this is self-explanatory, I'm just, if I'm reading this, I go, well, what the hell is a secondary?
Yeah, it's clear, I think, because it says secondaries of the distribution transformer. So yeah, it's okay.
Okay. Secondary is the guy that stands behind you when you're in a duel.
Right.
Yeah, he's the one who loads your pistol. Okay, spot network. Definition change here again. We're adding typically found serving modern commercial buildings. Is this necessary?
I think for spot network, what was noted in the first version and the second version is that it would have to be reconciled to the area network. and we're fine with that.
Sorry. Where do I put that? What do I say? Do we leave it as it is?
Yeah, I think the comment by the original definition work group was to reconcile that into area network, and we're fine with that.
I see.
To be considered under.
But we need a separate definition.
I think under IEEE, it'd be under the same umbrella of an area network. It's referred to as that.
I'm completely not understanding you.
Yeah, if you go to IEEE and you look area network, they consider spot networks as such, as an area network.
Okay, a spot network is a form of area network.
You could say that.
Okay. Generally used. Okay, so the question is, this sentence here about kind of like saying kind of where it's found in commercial buildings, is that necessary? SPS, this is your proposal.
We added it to add clarity of what a spot network is. I don't think it's essential.
Okay, so we're going to not use this because that's the only change, and we're going to keep that with that minor modification. Okay. Supplemental review. We got two more things. If you can hang on with me. Supplemental review. This was, I think, next stamps or
Section 3.3 doesn't actually define what supplemental review is.
Yeah,
So
that's why I don't like this.
That's not and we don't define supplemental review, detailed study, or initial review anywhere else, as far as I know.
Well, we added in a detailed study definition probably before you got here. Detailed study means the procedure for evaluating blah blah blah, right?
Okay.
That was an example was addressing the fact that there weren't.
I mean, logically, supplemental review is everything that's not initial review, and initial review is everything that we specify in the screens in the proposal, in the screening proposal. So we're specifying what the initial review is in the screens proposal.
Okay.
And then supplemental review is anything that's not initial review. But that's, I don't know.
Okay, so additional, it says additional engineering study. So is that accurate?
Well, we propose for that as a we can provide a definition for that. First of all, supplemental review is not a full interconnection study. We'd like to clarify that. Supplemental review is a process. Yeah, we want to make a distinction between detail or what we call a full interconnection study currently to a supplemental review. For us, those are two different items. A supplemental review and a detailed study is two different things.
So is this correct?
Supplemental review.
I don't know if the definition is necessary. I tried looking at other interconnection procedures to see how they define supplemental review, and no one actually defined supplemental review. So I don't know if we actually need it.
I think the way we treat it is if any application fails any of the screens and it requires further review, we would send it to a supplemental review, right?
Yeah, SBS
That is
agrees
the process.
SBS agrees with PNM that I don't think we want to create the expectation that we're identifying system impacts or system upgrades required in here. Like we're really just determining if it can be interconnected safely or does it need to go to a detailed study.
Can we say additional engineering study to determine any requirements for processing? Just leave it at that?
And yeah, we would also like to include under supplemental study, because this is under the considerations of the other definitions. We would like to include contingency studies be part of the supplemental review if all the other utilities are in consensus with that.
Additional engineering and
When we
contingency?
Contingency studies.
We're okay with that. I think to determine any requirements for processing application through expedited process is limiting, because there is the path where it goes to full study as well. Or like if we add or requires full study, detailed study.
Determine through the expedite. Where does that get added?
To determine if any requirements or if there are any requirements.
You're making it harder. Come on.
Sorry.
To determine any requirements for processing the application through the expedited fast track process or through a detailed study. Is that what you're meaning?
Okay, I think we're okay with that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
you
we're fine with that as well.
Art,
Right.
this is Ron. I don't think we accept contingency studies. I'm not clear as to what those are and whether they are required in a fast track process. I don't think they are. And this can't be the
they're not
mechanism to
required in
bring
the
that in.
fast track process.
So therefore, they
Those
shouldn't
are
be
not,
allowed here.
They're part of the supplemental review when it goes
They
to
may
the
be.
protection group. And so they are part of the supplemental review, not of the fast track process. We're saying that contingency analysis is part of the supplemental review in consideration of protection.
I don't know that that's the case, and so I can't accept it.
Well, how about
I think-
that door? I mean,
Yeah, Arthur, I'm just contingency study, and maybe because I'm not the most technical person, but that sounds kind of general and a little hard to just accept. I'm not sure why that would needed to be in there.
If the commission decides that supplemental review requires contingency studies for this, so be it, but not as a definition.
Agreed.
In SDRIP, sorry, am I on? No, I am not. Okay. In SDRIP, there's a screen in the supplemental review. There's utility shall consider whether operational flexibility is reduced. So that's in a way referring to a contingency study.
To
is
my
it
mind,
done?
those
Is
are
a
different
study done
things.
by engineers, or is it done by lawyers?
It is.
Okay, it's a form of engineering study. We're going to leave it at that. UL used to be known as Underwriters Laboratory.
Art, before you
Yeah.
leave the S section, this is David Spradlin at Springer. I am going to request that the small utility definition that is in the existing rule be put in this rule.
Okay, it's in the rule, so
It's in the current rule, but it's
Right.
not in definitions here.
Okay, small utility.
Yeah, small utility means a utility that serves less than 50,000 customers.
Fewer than. Everybody got a problem with that?
No, I just have a
know-
question.
I know
Where
it's
is that,
important.
taken into consideration? Is that considered in the rest of the document?
It is going to be in the rule. It's going to be in the rule, so we might as well define it.
Okay.
Thank you, Art.
You're welcome. All right, that's it. We don't have time to go through non-consensus definitions. They are by definition non-consensus. I don't know what to do about it, but they're gonna just go, and there's gonna be some kind of process by the commission in order to determine whether they belong here or not. I can't see why they wouldn't. I don't know what the utility objection is, but we don't have time to deal with it.
Could we specify which ones are supported by which party?
No.
Okay.
I think mostly it's just a matter of the utilities don't want to deal with hosting capacity or cost sharing. That's my guess. Okay. Anybody have anything? Did I miss something, PNM, on your thing? I'm sorry that I didn't have your printout here. Abbas, I think we dealt with all his definitions. Anything else? I'm going to save this. This is going to get inserted into the version after the next set of edits. Thank you all.
Thank you for your patience, Art.
Yeah, thank you.
No.
Thanks so much.
No, I'm sorry. Door's closed. What?
So Arthur, it sounds like one action item that still exists. We're asking if you can for SPS, EPE, and PNM to come up with a integrated definition for interconnection facilities.
Right.
If possible, by next week.
And then of course anybody else gets to challenge that or decide what it is. Utilities to provide unified definition.
There is one last clarification that we would like to bring up to the working group on item or line 1476 to 1478. And let me just pull it up here. In reference to, it says, direct model was updated to specifically address how utilities should evaluate energy storage systems and other generation that is non-export, limited export, or otherwise managed by smart inverters and power control systems. And in regards to that point, as an excerpt, and you should have it in the printout that we submitted, we found the following quote from Direct Model in page 4. However, the procedures do not resolve the question of how projects that inadvertently export should be evaluated in the screening process.
Okay, this is not a definitional issue. Can we bring this up next week?
No. Sure, we will.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is not a definitional issue. Adam, you have your hand raised?
Okay.
Yeah, Art, just following up in the chat, I had put the statement what Burke had said regarding battery storage. It's in line similar to what Olga had said about discharging. So I just wanted to bring it to your attention that I put it in the chat.
This doesn't look like a definition to me.
It's just their statement on battery storage. It's what Burke had said.
Oh, I see.
FERC in that order, EL 20-15, and then I put the FERC site. They discuss there that battery storage technology by its very nature does not generate electricity, but rather withdraws energy at one point and discharges.
Okay, I think that we're covered on that then, right?
Yeah, I just wanted I had said that earlier that I'd follow up, so I just wanted to let you know.
All right, thank you. Margie, we can save the chats, right?
Yes, and I have been annotating to make sure I knew what people were commenting on. So yes, I save chats from all of our recorded meetings.
Okay. Great. All right.
Thank you, Margie, for all your hard work too. I know everyone else was complimenting Art, but you and Eric do a good job.
Okay. See you next week, 9:30.
Thanks, Art.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks for sticking with us.